Good evening to listeners of all sorts. You are tuning into Are You Afraid of the Art? My story will not be a story for my conscious mind, but will be one of the many mares from the subconscious depths of my subconscious mind that formed during my early youth. It's strange. This room is familiar, and I know it's visually my bedroom, but it isn't. Everything is in the same place as I know of, but it's dimly lit, and the corners are as dark as an abyss. It embodies a surreal, lingering aura of dread. An indescribable sound is heard faintly coming from down the hall, and a smell of musty mothballs to accompany it. I got out of bed to venture out of curiosity. Plopping my feet onto the cold, worn, wooden floor and walking down the hall. The sound of what now sounded like chanting and humming was present. It is foggy. A black kind of fog that the eyes can't possibly register as a color or pigment, but as a visual void. Only candles on the walls dimly lit the way. Out of nowhere, appearing from the fog, the silhouette of a man stands ahead of me, that of which I have never seen with my eyes before, but was familiar with his presence. He appears tall but formless in the features that would normally have a face and a head shape. He points and guides me down the hallway to the living room. As I approach it, the fog reveals the back of the couch with my parents sitting facing the TV. I can only see the back of their shoulders, heads, and the back of the couch as they were watching a gray screen of noise on TV while cigarette smoke was slowly rising to the ceiling from the table in front of them. They didn't budge or react to me when I said anything to them or introduced them to my friend. They were irresponsive and stood completely still, and I could feel them being emotionless and began to get the feeling that it wasn't them. A loud, low-pitched of a sinister laugh is heard behind me. I turned my head to look, and the figure that just guided me here had vanished. I turned my head back toward the couch, and it was empty. The static on the TV suddenly got louder, as the faint light I could see through the fog from the candles started getting dimmer. Suddenly, I am back in my bed, but before I even wonder how or why, I hear the piano in the living room playing. So I get up to see who is playing piano in the middle of the night as everyone slept. Walking to the hall again, on the creaky wood floors in the near full darkness. The only light that paved the way is the one dim lamp over the piano. I enter the room and it is my brother playing the piano. It looks like my brother, but I know it isn't him. He was just far enough where I can't see the features on his face. I begin to say, "Why are you up playing this late?" The light immediately goes out, and it is pitch black in the room for a moment. And in the very moment, a deep-pitched, loud laughter echoed. The light comes back on, and he disappeared, and no one else is in sight. It became dead silent. The feeling of being suddenly watched and approached by unseen forces became inevitable. Moving quicker and quicker, I drag my sock-wearing feet toward the kitchen in the next room, and it is brightly lit with the TV on, again with cigarette smoke rising from the kitchen table to the ceiling. My grandparents occupy the chairs watching the TV. They appear stiff as mannequins, and they don't even look like they're breathing, but appear fine at a glance. I also need to check on the animals to make sure that they are okay now that I know that my grandparents are being harassed by this force. Rushing into the bedrooms, finding one of our cats, I kneel down to pet her. After my hand contacts and pets her head, her body collapses silently and her limbs disembark from her body and fall to the floor, cleanly, without blood or anything from within. This disturbs, shocks, and put me into a state of panic. So my reaction was to run and tell my grandparents. This time, just my grandmother was in there. I told her what had happened to one of the cats, and she didn't react. At first. A moment later, after I had just explained, she released a soft but low-pitched, ominous snicker. Since there was no help given there, I ran to find my grandpa. So I'm going back through the hallway I came from, but it's changed this time. The walls and floor are bathroom tiled but gritty, broken, and stained with blood in areas. It looked like it was there for decades before my short existence. Rusty shower heads were lined up and hung up high, all uniform across the walls. I felt a presence appear from behind me, and it was the formless man again. He pushes me down the hallway but doesn't physically touch me. The now newly elongated hallway into one of the bedrooms. He standing behind me, I turned the corner, only to see about 100 candles lit all over the shelves and dressers in the room, and the grisly sight of my grandparents, attending and standing next to a recently then dead loved one, sitting in what they said was his favorite recliner, his body upright with strings attached to his limbs and hung from a pulley on the ceiling. Also, while donning a forced, soulless, lightless smile, his eyes staring directly towards me. They said they kept him this way so he'll always be with us and be happy. They all, in one motion, in unison, stood in a line, all facing me, stared and waved simultaneously. The figure disappeared, and the candles went out. The room became the basement stairs. Behind me only appeared a wall, so I had no choice but to go down the stairs. It was dark, but was lit by 2 light bulbs in the ceiling. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, the figure tasked me with finding, retrieving, then returning a book that I supposed the figure needed. I was now given 30 seconds to find this book, or else. I looked immensely, all while it's silent, with the only thing I hear and feel is a pulsing heartbeat in my ear and a pounding out of my chest, making me tense to find this book. Walking around, circling the basement, feels like slow motion because of fear that had been bestowed. There are stacks of random things upon stacks of other random things, including many books that bore resemblance to one another. My 30 seconds was almost up, with no book to offer the figure, when suddenly, everything stopped. It became dead silent, and could no longer hear or feel the heartbeat pounding in my ear and out of my chest, but only the ringing in my ear of the dead silence. The lights dimmed, but also turned red. A new beam of light appears from up the staircase. I look, and there's a wide open door for my exit. I see the stairs and run to them, but I hear the door at the top slam and hear it lock loudly. Jumping onto and up the first 2 steps, the steps cascaded and fell onto the ground, completely broken with no other way up. Me falling onto the ground painfully, I get up. Looking around in the dead silence, there is a short, shapeless, void-colored figure facing me and slowly flopping one limb in front of the other towards my direction. It is slow and silent, but it is after me. I backpedal closer towards the wall and near the utility sink and shelves. My time is up. I suppose they sent this after me. I had nowhere else to go, so I stood. The shape was about 6 feet from me. Quickly, within a matter of 2 seconds, a long, skinny, seemingly endless black, skinless pair of arms stretched out from under a chest that was 3 inches from the ground and reached for my ankles. It grasped them with its sharp and cold claws, tugged me off my feet as I hit the hard concrete, and yanked my whole body inhumanly fast under the chest. Concluding this MARE. Thank you for listening to this MARE. Please feel free to check out my other content and art. This is Are You Afraid of the Art signing off.